So there's these terms, good faith and bad faith, as far as choosing who you can present your perspectives to get perspective back, to get some adequate pushback. Because, it's not my point is to say that, oh, you're afraid, when you're actually looking for feedback. How rude would it be, someone looking for feedback, and I'm just like, oh, you know what you're afraid of is feedback, objectively. Like, that would be annoying. So you have to not waste energy. You're gonna be like there's gonna be a little test before you even present arguments to someone, if whether or not they're good faith. And the reason that is, I want to say, what would be the danger in arguing with someone who's bad faith? And it's because they turn to finger pointing accusations and libel. It's like gatekeeping for the Aristotelian matriarch. You have to gatekeep means you have to make a bad faith argument, and which is to say, like, you must be in support of something that you are only making as a critique to challenge the logic. It's just to look at the logic. You're just trying to analyze the logic. You're not trying to say that I wish this would happen or I think that would happen, but it's a precedent. Could you say that if this and that and such, that could equate or correlate to this or that other thing being in such and such a way? Is there some kind of scalability or something? Is there some kind of rhyminess? Does it rhyme? So when it comes to the core of what the Aristotelian matriarch believes, it's just a fundamental trying to raise good behavior. It doesn't stop when the child turns into an adult. You think she knows anything different since the moment that a child became an adult, that she would speak to you in a different way than it wasn't gaslighting or condescending, even whether or not she knows? Because if she thinks that she thinks it's helpful and necessary to humiliate her children in order for them to develop good behavior, and the good behavior, they'll be able to look back and say, like, yeah, that was installed, right? And if you take away that approach, if you disqualify that approach and say, like, that is insane, because if you only try the same way, you expect different results. That's the definition of psycho. And when you analyze the movie Psycho, they were talking about the Aristotelian matriarch. It wasn't talking about how I put together and correlated something to try to make it a downgrading statement against women. But that's what happens when you try to analyze this. It's like people gatekeep and they libel and slander, and then they say you must hate women, or you're making an argument. Like, I look around and it's like most women are not they're not really getting it's just a little piece, it's just like a little fragments of the male psyche that takes this conditioning from the Aristotelian matriarch. It's not every woman that you see walking around is doing this to their kids. You see them doing normal stuff, and then you study them because they're normal. See how that goes? You look for what you think is positive reinforcement taking place, constructive, and you study it to see what it looks like, what it is. You get the nature of reality from that aspect. Because someone who, I already said that, insanity, right? So if you take that, if you take that and you pose that to someone gatekeeping for it, they can never avow that, you know what I mean? They can never acknowledge that. It's going to always try to dismiss your perspective outright. I wouldn't say, oh, they're liable and everything. How they haven't any different which way that they came up with to be dismissive is what happened. But I'm just saying, and generalistically, that's just I can never acknowledge that your reasoning is on par. Like it's always something. You're crazy, basically. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes if someone says you're crazy and everything, they might be right. So you have to evaluate them, like an evaluation. I think they have buzzwords too, like critical thinking and stuff. Like they don't like when it comes down to it, like that thing that their buzzword is exactly opposite of anything that they care a fuck about, and that's kind of why they're saying it. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, of course they would have to make a false austerity movement towards some kind of like false austerity and dialectics, toward dialectical, being able to change the nature of reality, because you can't call on them to accurately describe the nature of reality. I said that's the definition of bad faith, but I think it's like if you depends if you know if you're Nescian or not. It's like, how can I say it's dangerous? You could be in on, yeah, that's like a pointlessness. You just have to know who it is you're trying to debate, because it's something about if they already know and you're trying to explain it to them when they already know, they refuse to acknowledge something because of bad faith, that makes you discredits you on right there, then and there, because you're wasting energy to tell something to somebody who the message is lost on them. It doesn't mean anything. They don't care. They already know. And imagine you're still explaining it to me. Like he's just laughing. Like that's how they do. And then all this is for a reason. You know what I mean? There's supposed to be some like greater value to attain that everybody's in this fashion motivation toward these. Otherwise, like, why wouldn't you be distracted by lint blowing around? Like, just like, oh, there's a follicle, some suspended, like, tiny fiber flying around in space. I wouldn't even be listening to you. I wouldn't even be talking.